I really enjoyed Draftee Daffy. I think it's something people probably could have related to be honest. And as far as propaganda goes, it's pretty in your face. This was released in January 1945, which is obviously very important. When I first watched it, I wasn't aware exactly when 1945 it was released. I just knew it was 1945. And having it said at the beginning obviously makes a lot of sense because Daffy Duck is very pleased about how the US forces are doing in the Second World War, and he's very patriotic, and there's a wonderful moment where he sings all of these patriotic songs. And then there's a knock at the door, and we realise that it's somebody coming to give him a telegram with what we, the viewer, can assume, and what all Daffy Duck assumes, is his conscription order. And obviously this was people didn't know that the war was going to be ending relatively soon, and people were still being conscripted and still being forced, quite frankly, to join the army, guilt tripped into joining the army. If you have to sign up, what's your excuse? Why not? I think conscription is a terrible idea, but that I'm glad it's not a thing now. Daffy Duck does not want to join the army, so he does everything he can to escape this person at his door, but things don't exactly go to plan, and it gets more and more ludicrous as the cartoon goes on. And I really enjoyed it. It's quite an interesting message because, well, what happens to Daffy Duck is actually pretty in your face. It's, if you don't accept your call to join the army, this is what's going to happen to you. And it's pretty in your face and pretty brutal. And I think one of the most blatant attempts at trying to get somebody to not ignore their conscription order that I've ever seen. Definitely is the case. So it's kind of hard to watch because I don't agree with the message. Obviously, there are many propaganda cartoons that are designed to encourage you to enlist. But when it's a bit more like this and you don't have a say in it and you're supposed to do what you're told, and you lose that free will. And it's ironic, they're fighting. I say they're fighting. Both sides were fighting to, save people and fighting so that they were not under control of the Axis. But ironically, you lost your free will when you were forced to go and fight. Obviously, this is a whole other debate. But the cartoon itself I really enjoyed. I loved Daffy's change in mood, how he went from being really patriotic to being refusing to cooperate. The actions that he took I thought were pretty interesting. The message towards the end, I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's certainly effective. Or at least I imagine it would be effective. It was very powerful. It's definitely really enjoyable, I think, from a historical perspective. I don't think it sends out the right message. I don't think it sends out any kind of patriotism, which a lot of propaganda do, and it's quite an interesting shift that Daffy was being patriotic and then was being what the cartoon is showing as a coward. And there's obviously the message there of how can you possibly be patriotic if you're not fighting on enemy lines. Propaganda is such a complicated thing, and I really enjoy it from a historical perspective. I'm glad that we don't really get this kind of thing now, and I hope we never do again. But I also hope that these cartoons never obliterate, because Draftee Daffy, I actually kind of enjoyed. If you're a fan of propaganda cartoons from the Second World War, this is definitely a really fascinating one that's really brilliant to analyse. Don't believe I mentioned it's directed by Robert Clampett, and of course we have Mel Blanc voicing Daffy Duck. If you haven't seen it and it sounds like your kind of thing, definitely give it a go.